All right, we're back with session number 2. And David, you said that we have a transition.
Yes.
Go ahead.
We're going to talk about Jesus and the Lord of the Sabbath. Two events, disciples plucking grain and Jesus healing a man's hand on the Sabbath, have often been understood as expressing Jesus' authority over the law of Moses. This concern is certainly expressed in the assertion, the Son of Man is the Lord even of the Sabbath, in Matthew 12:8. But the evangelists have a more primary concern in both events. Jesus emphasized that keeping the spirit intent of the law was more important than strictly adhering to the letter of its ritual requirement. This point is emphasized by Jesus' question to those in the synagogue. Is it lawful on the Sabbath to do good or to do evil, to save a life or to kill? Both Matthew and Mark address this issue in the story about the grain. And Mark recounts Jesus' interpretation that the law was given for humanity's benefit. Humanity was not created for the sake of the law. And Matthew reports Jesus' reference to Hosea 6:6, stressing God's desire for humans to put mercy, concern for people, before sacrifice as a legalistic ritual observance. Mercy before the Sabbath.
Mercy before the Sabbath. Yep. You know, it's interesting again whenever you read in Exodus where it says respect the Sabbath, and back then in those days they took it the religious people, they took it seriously. They said, well, I think they added the point in position where they'd kill you. If you worked on the Sabbath. Mm-hmm. I don't think that was the intent of God saying it. I think it was the intent of, pick a day and rest. I mean, I don't care if it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but pick a day for us. We pick Sunday, which which you mentioned sometimes the Seventh-day Adventists.
Well, they still worship on Saturday.
Saturday, yeah.
They try really to adhere to the Ten Commandments. Mm-hmm. But it's actually the Catholic that changed the Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday.
Anyway.
So, what God had changed it, man's the one who changed it.
Yeah.
So. But I think God's intent was not only just for it being a day of rest and worship, but even every day should be a day of worship.
Exactly.
Even though it's not a rest day. Mm-hmm. So you wake up with God on your mind and go to bed with God on your mind.
Absolutely. More on that later. But anyway. Go on, David. Read Matthew 12, 1 through 8 for us.
1 through 8.
Yes, sir.
At that time, Jesus went through the grain fields on the Sabbath, and his disciples were hungry and began to pluck heads of grain and to eat. Yeah, eat it without cooking it. That must be a hard chew.
Yeah.
It's kind of like eating oatmeal without cooking it. And when the Pharisees saw it, they said to him, look, your disciples are doing what is not lawful to do on the Sabbath. But he said to them, have you not read what David did when he was hungry? He and those who were with him, how he entered the house of God and ate the showbread, which was not lawful for him to eat, nor for those who were with him, but only for the priest? Or have you not read in the law that on the Sabbath the priest in the temple profane the Sabbath and are blameless? Yet I say to you that in this place there is one greater than the temple. But if you had known what this means, I desire mercy and not sacrifice, you will not have condemned the guiltless. For the Son of Man is the Lord over this, even over the Sabbath.
Yep. Lord over the Sabbath. It was his idea, remember? You know, God rests on the Sabbath, and it just worked out that way, you know? So,
I'm saying how they, I desire mercy and not sacrifice. I mean, it seemed like they should have known that.
Yeah.
These Pharisees and scribes. But here, him saying that he's the Son of Man, even over the Sabbath, he's telling them there he's equal with God.
Yes, sir. Mark's passage tells us one Sabbath day, as Jesus was walking through some grain fields, his disciples began breaking off the heads of the grain to eat. But the Pharisees said to Jesus, "Look, why are they breaking the law by harvesting grain on the Sabbath?" Jesus said to them, Haven't you read in the scriptures what David did, and when he and his companions were hungry, he went into the house of God during the days of Abiathar, was the high priest. And broke the law by eating the sacred loaves of bread that only the priests are allowed to eat. And he also gave to his companions. And Jesus said to them, the Sabbath was made to meet the needs of the people, and not the people to meet the requirements on the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is the Lord over the Sabbath. So, anything on that?
Sounds like we just read that a while ago.
I'm telling you.
In Matthew.
Yeah.
He's the way you see, was it the Sabbath was made for man and not man for the Sabbath. The way you put it, really, that version really brings it out really plain.
Which one?
The last verse you read, 27.
Yeah. 28? 27, 28. Yeah, the Sabbath was made to meet the needs of the people, and not people to meet the requirements of the Sabbath. Because, it's interesting. The Sabbath, back in what they're talking about, is you can't go outside of your house on the Sabbath.
We always prepared meals the day before.
Yep. And if you read again, like Exodus or Leviticus and Numbers, especially Numbers, you got more of the rules. You can't kindle a fire, so you can't go anywhere, or you can't turn a light on because you're making the people at the electric company work. So work on the Sabbath, and you can't have that. So it's interesting. Luke's passage states, on one Sabbath day, Jesus was walking through some grain fields, and the disciples broke off the heads of grain. So you got the same story in Matthew, same story in Mark, same story in Luke. They rubbed off the husks in their hands, and they ate the grain. But some Pharisees said, "Why are you breaking the law by harvesting grain on the Sabbath?" Jesus replied, have you read in the scriptures that David and his companions were hungry? They also did eat. He went into the house of God and broke the law by eating the sacred loaves of the bread. He also gave some to his companions, and Jesus added, "The Son of Man is Lord even over the Sabbath."
Very synoptic.
Very synoptic. Absolutely.
Got the same message. The Son of Man is the Lord of the Sabbath in Matthew, Mark, and Luke.
Yep. And there's an interesting detail. There's the principle of the third mention, right? You got, if there's 2 or 3 verses that pertain to a topic like this, that's where you can say, okay, you can build off of that. It's like the Catholics are big on what is it, Peter, upon this rock I will build my church.
Yeah.
But there's only one verse like that. So,
but every pope becomes a Peter.
Exactly. Matthew chapter 12. We're we're still performing miracles on on the Sabbath.
Yeah, we're not eating here.
So, let's see. Then, in Matthew chapter 12, starting in verse 9, then Jesus went over to their synagogue, where he noticed a man with a deformed head. And the Pharisees asked Jesus, does the law permit a person to work by healing on the Sabbath? They were hoping he would say yes, so they could bring charges against him. So it's interesting with with this, that they're always constantly trying to find something wrong with Jesus, right? There's a common thread there.
My brain is telling me that if you're working, you're earning.
Exactly.
If you're healing and you're getting compensated for it, you're working.
Mm-hmm.
If you're healing and not getting compensated for it, can that be work? I mean, you're...
Well, in their mind, it sure was.
Well, to them, doing this is working.
Yeah.
I mean,
remember, you can't even go outside of your house, or you're considered working on Sabbath.
well, how come these Pharisees were catching these guys shucking grain?
I'm telling you what.
They came outside their house.
Absolutely. Yep.
I don't think that was part of the law.
Yeah.
In the Old Testament.
Right. Yeah.
It may be one that
they
created.
Right.
Because they created a lot of laws themselves.
Oh yeah. Which next week we'll do a kind of go a little bit more on that, on the Sabbath type thing, because it really is very interesting, David. Like the way the scriptures just break it down, and you see now in our present day life, it's interesting to read all of this stuff, and it's like, oh, two things. This is for the Jews. I'm Indian. David's a mutt. You know. So it doesn't pertain to us, first off. Number two, again, if we're surrounding ourselves in 2023, right? We got cars, we got lights, we got water, you got all these different things. In Exodus.
And you go fishing on Sunday.
Yeah.
They're not going, and that's not work. That's not people. That's fun.
Yeah, yeah. But you know, the Pentateuch really talks about you can't. Whenever they say "do not work on the Sabbath," they mean do not work on the Sabbath. Don't go outside of your house. You can't kindleth a fire. You can't do A, B, C, D, or E, because anyway, we'll save that up for next week because it is very, very fascinating stuff.
But right now we're healing a man's hand.
Exactly, a deformed man's hand.
Is it right or left?
Does it say?
I don't think it does.
Yeah. And he answered. If he had a sheep, now Jesus is still talking to the Pharisees and the Sadducees. If he had a sheep that fell into a well on the Sabbath, wouldn't you work to pull him out? Of course you would. And how much more valuable is a person than a sheep? You know, how much more valuable is a human life to you? You know, because Jesus also will eventually get there, but Jesus also raised the dead on the Sabbath. He cast out demons. He healed people. You know, it's all there. So, but anyway, so he goes on to say, yes, the law permits a person to do good on the Sabbath. Then he said to the man, go ahead, you got anything?
Bam, there it is.
Yep, exactly.
Therefore, it's good. It's better to do good on it. Therefore, it is lawful. He said lawful.
Exactly. Yep.
To do good on the Sabbath.
Yep.
So if you're saving a man's life,
mm-hmm.
and you go through the motions of working to do it,
yep,
it's lawful.
Exactly.
They'd probably stand back and watch the man die.
Yeah.
The Pharisees would.
Yep. You gotta watch out.
Don't call the doctor.
You gotta watch out for those religious people.
Mm.
They'll kill you. Read this book. It's all in it. It's uncanny. It's crazy. Then he said to the man, hold out your hand. So the man held out his hand, and it was restored, just like the other one. Then the Pharisees called a meeting to plot on how to kill Jesus. It's interesting. This miracle, you know, you always think of Jesus, you know, touching you and healing you, and you know, like the lady with the issue of blood touched the hem of his of his garment.
I think you're going to take. You bring out the point where he didn't even touch this man.
Yeah.
But
if you read so far, what we have read, there's seldomly has he ever touched anybody, or
you go back to
approached.
Go back to the man at the pool of Bethesda. He didn't touch him. He just told him to get up and take his mat and go home.
And it's like that. The guy with the people with the paralytic. They carried him up on the roof.
dropped him down.
They dug him. Jesus seeing, not the man's faith, but seeing their faith.
All of them.
All of them. The man was healed. And it's interesting, I'll relay this question to you. Why do you think that Jesus said, "Go and sin no more"? He said that several times in the scriptures.
Especially the adulterous woman.
Knowing that they're going to sin. Now us, me and David, when God sees us, He doesn't see our sin. That's because of what Jesus did on the cross.
Yeah, he sees.
But this is before that. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, I think the guy that pulled of Bethesda didn't even know who he was to start with until he pointed him out to who Jesus was. Mm-hmm. I think Jesus met him in the temple and told him there not to go sin no more.
Yep.
Yeah.
Several times in the scripture, go and sin no more. So, but why do you think he said that? At that point, we know we can go and sin no more because he doesn't see our sin.
Well, we can go and sin, but we're covered.
Right.
They weren't covered by the blood yet.
Exactly. We're dead to sin. They weren't dead to sin.
But it's still, he's still telling them to be righteous.
Yep. Do
what is good. Just like he said about that it's lawful to do good on the Sabbath.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now, robbing and stealing ain't lawful to do on the Sabbath because it's not good. But that's a form of works in the opposite direction. It ain't like healing, or even calling a doctor to help. I mean, that would be one of the things is having the doctor's on call 24/7.
Yeah,
because he's there to do good.
Especially, and also the cops,
firemen,
cops, the ambulance,
sheep herders.
Yeah.
One gets stuck, you got to go get him, even if it's on the Sabbath.
Absolutely.
I mean, you got to watch over your flocks.
Mm-hmm. Okay, David, grab Mark 3, chapter 3, verses 1 through 6.
Mark 3, there it is. And he entered the synagogue again, and a man was there who had a withered hand. So they watched him closely, whether he would heal him on the Sabbath, so that they might accuse him. And he said to the man who had the withered hand, "Step forward." Then he said to them, "Is it lawful on the Sabbath to do good or to do evil, to save life or to kill?" But they kept silent. And when he had looked around at them with anger, being grieved by the hardness of their hearts, he said to the man, "Stretch out your hand." And he stretched it out, and his hand was restored as whole as the other. Then the Pharisees went out, immediately plotted with Herodians against him, how they might destroy him.
So, there's a common thread with Jesus, right? Or with God. And you have to go and abide by the rules,
Well, it's like we read before. It's God wants mercy more than sacrifice. This is an act of mercy.
Exactly.
The healing of the hand is an act of mercy.
Precisely.
So it's like it said in Matthew, it is lawful to do good on the Sabbath.
Mm. Yep. Yes, sir.
So that waitress that waits on you on Sunday for lunch, she doing good or evil?
Well, she's feeding you, so I'd say that's pretty good.
All right.
I'm telling you.
Good in your eyes, ain't it?
And also, she's getting paid, too.
Oh, yeah.
Getting tips, you know. Well, I don't know.
That was a good answer.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're getting fed. That's good.
Yep.
You didn't have to go home and pull out cold leftovers
There you go.
if you was going to obey the law.
Yep. Especially if there's a lavender cheesecake involved in there. Oh, we're in Luke chapter 6.
You're on verse 6, right?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. Luke 6:6. Thank goodness it's not 666. Okay. On another day, a man was with a deformed right hand. So this is his right hand.
Wow! What do you? That's synopsis stuff. I mean, wham! You read 2. Which hand is it? And then you get to Luke. It's the right hand.
The suspense kills you, don't it? Yeah. But you know, really though, if you ever have a question about God's word, you know, it always answers it.
Yeah.
Even eventually.
What's so funny is you can trick people with this.
Exactly. Yep.
Get them to read Matthew and Mark and tell them and say, well, which hand is it? What don't say?
Yep.
Well, let's see what Luke says.
Yep.
Oh, it's the right hand. It does say.
Woo. Yes, sir. In the synagogue, let's see. The right hand. On another Sabbath day, there we go. A man with a deformed right hand was in the synagogue while Jesus was teaching. The teachers of the religious law and the Pharisees watched Jesus closely. By the way, David, this is something that is really something that we need to really note. Because did you know if you're a Christian, people are watching you? Because, you know, I hear all the time, I'm sure you do too, that, you know, oh, you go to church, all you guys you're hypocrites.
Yeah.
And that is true. But then again, there are two sides of that coin. If we're hypocrites, that means that you're a hypocrite too.
Well,
It's all human nature.
if he's an unbeliever, it don't matter what he is. He's just looking for an excuse to blame.
Exactly. Yep. So
You're reading verse 7.
they're always watching you.
Yeah.
You closely. You have anything to add?
Well, we've read this same thing in the other two, that they're watching him closely to see if he heal on the Sabbath. So evidently, they've known him to do this before,
Right.
and they waiting him to keep on doing it.
Absolutely. Yep, it says, it goes on to say, to see if he will heal the man's hand. They planned to accuse him of working on the Sabbath. But Jesus knew their thoughts. Oh my goodness, Dave. Let's camp out right there for a second. Did you hear that? What does it say in your version?
It says they knew their thoughts.
Jesus knowing their thoughts. Listen to me. If anyone is out there listening or will listen to this, but what does it go on to say? He said to the man with a deformed hand, "Come and stand in front of everyone." So the man came forward. Then Jesus said to his critics, "I have a question for you. Does the law permit good deeds on the Sabbath or is it a day for doing evil? So, question. Jesus knew their thoughts. Could you imagine playing hide and seek with Jesus when he was a kid?
Well, I think in the sense he wasn't reading their minds. I think their actions gave themselves away. For he's kind of tuned in to he knows what they're like.
Well, yeah, but
I mean, he wasn't. I don't think he was reading their minds.
right. Well, we can know
they did something that gave themselves away.
Well, sure.
That maybe being you wouldn't pick up on.
Well, sure, but you got to think if Fred Franklin came in, the Jehovah Witness dude that came to my house for 5 years, and before I left for Kansas, we know what he's going to come up with because we studied him. We know what old Fred his name was Fred Franklin.
Yeah,
I think it was.
Well, that's the same situation here.
Yeah. We know where Fred is coming from, right? Because we know the basics of
their theology.
the theology.
Yeah.
But when Jesus is saying it, I think there's a little bit more to it. I think that Jesus knew what they were thinking, which he does. He did.
But the thing is, he knows the law. He knows what the Pharisees and Sadducees have come up with that's not in the law that God requires.
Yep.
So, in a sense, he knows their religion.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so he don't have to exactly know their thought for thought. He can know their intentions by what he knows about them.
Yeah.
Like this Fred Franklin.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying now. Yeah, you're right. But by the way, guess what? He knows your thoughts too.
Well,
he knows my thoughts.
It's the thing is,
and he loves you anyway.
The thing about him knowing our thoughts now is that he's not here with us.
Right. Yeah.
He's there interceding for us.
True.
So he's actually in the God position right now.
Yeah.
That makes
kind of makes a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yep. Then Jesus said to his critics, "I have a question for you. Does the law permit good deeds on the Sabbath, or is it a day of doing evil? Is this day to save a life or to destroy it or to kill it?" He looked around at them one by one, and then said to the man, "Just hold out your hand." So the man held out his hand, and it was restored. At this, the enemies of Jesus were wild with rage and began to discuss on how to destroy him. So, again, with everything that Jesus is doing, there is always rules. There's always a rule of thumb, the paralytic man, pick up your mat and follow me. With this guy, this is basically the same thing. Stretch out your hand, and there we go. The man with leprosy. Go wash yourself, and then so you always have something to do. You see, everyone says that salvation is a free gift. Yes, salvation is a free gift. But guess what, David? You have to come to him first. You cannot say, okay, I'll do it later. It's kind of like when working out. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to go work out tomorrow because I don't want to do it today.
Well, see,
But then again, there's no better time than the present.
what we've
Go ahead.
read, what we read about the like the guy that at the pool of Bethesda, and this man with the withered hand.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, he didn't have to touch him. He told him what to do. This guy raised his hand.
Mm-hmm.
The guy at the pool of Bethesda took up his mat and walked away.
Mm-hmm.
Their action is showing their faith.
Exactly.
So
very good.
He's not just laying hands on them. He's getting them to react so that they will express their faith.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that's an application we can get out of this.
Exactly. Yes.
We react to Jesus by faith.
Yep. I agree.
And it's lawful to do good on the Sabbath.
Yes, sir.
Two good things that come out of this.
Yes.
And is that the end of our little discussion on the conflicts that Jesus had with the Sabbath?
I believe that is it. And next week we will talk about the multitude that followed Jesus. If you are new, like and subscribe, and we will see you next Tuesday, right?
The 28th of November. Have a good Thanksgiving.
Yes, happy Thanksgiving.
Be thankful for what you receive because it all comes from God.